in my case, what was really important was connecting with other people in a live way and also serving the immediate needs that were happening now. And I really felt that people needed to connect. They needed to have an opportunity to relax and I'm not going to say escape, but get in touch with something else besides fear and unknown. And we have been able to do that through a Zoom concert series that we've been playing for now the last 2 months. And we started pretty quickly, maybe in a sense of urgency, like survival.
Mm.
But we started to do these Zoom concerts very quickly. I think for that reason. And it's been surprising and kind of amazing. We've been able to perform for audiences all over the world, people who know our music but haven't been able to come to a live concert. And they all end up in the same virtual room. So people from Germany and Portugal and Ivory Coast and
Israel,
France,
Argentina.
Israel, Argentina, New York, Ohio, all together. And they can also talk to one another. So that's been amazing. And then we also had an opportunity to meet you, Felix, which has been a huge part of our change experience. We, Felix will probably tell you, but Felix and I met 4 years ago at a music conference in Budapest, and he, I believe, attended a couple of our online concerts and asked us to come on and talk about what's going on for musicians during this time. And due to his creativity and open-mindedness, and I would say our openness and interest in participating in a lot of different things, we started to perform on a kind of daily talk show think tank that Felix created called Remote Daily, and we've become the house band. So now we have every weekday we perform between 1 and 2 p.m. New York time, and that's totally shifted our schedule and totally shifted our we play more gigs in a way now than we were doing before, and
And
we've met
thank
a
you
lot of
for
people. Yeah.
shifting your schedule again. I know this is not a time where musicians usually perform 9 a.m. New York time. So have you had a coffee yet at all?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Neither did I. But thank you for being our band today. And if you can stick around for a few minutes, I will ask you again to give us a break in a few minutes and to perform another song. And in the meantime, thank you so much for getting up early and being here with us, because today is about how we can transform what you all do out there in an analog world in the virtual space. And I want to help you doing it. My name is Felix Seltner. I'm a New York City-based journalist and the co-founder of Work Awesome, a company organizing conferences on the future of work. And as Eleanor just gladly mentioned, currently I am hosting a live talk show on Zoom every day at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So just like all of you, I'm a journalist, and just like all of you, I've been struggling with the fact that my work just went away and has changed dramatically. So usually my small team and I, we host conferences between Berlin and New York City. The future of work is a huge topic. So what is it? It is everything from what's changing in the workplace, a lot of change happening right now for all of us, to very scientific things like artificial intelligence, automation, things that you can't see, right? So it's from the very physical into the very digital and kind of tricky to show and to tell as a journalist. When you see movies about artificial intelligence, or when you see movies about the future or news about the future, it's always hard to find images, right? So the conference is a way for me to do journalism live, to have my readers, my audience that I used to have in broadcasts and television in front of me and see how they react. And this is also what we're exercising here today. This is also the reason why I asked you to come from the webinar into a Zoom call, because this is actually a chance to see each other and interact with each other. And I very much look forward for the next 90 or so minutes with you. We'll try to divide it in 3 parts, which is I'll talk to you about openers, and rituals for virtual sessions, which I and Eleanor Dubinsky and Dario Costa-Tai are a great example for that, right? Which I find so important in our virtual age. So when you gather people about any topic virtually, you have to have an even better way of opening, of surprising, of welcoming people, and also of closing out, of building rituals, of building certainty in times of uncertainty. And then we hopefully go into a lot of interaction with each other. So we're going to talk here on the Zoom call. I'm going to hear what you do. You have amazing jobs, amazing missions. You're all around the world. And then at the end, I will share some tools with you, some tools that I found helpful for teamwork, for collaboration in terms of content, for games and polls and everything you can do virtually. And I want to hear from you all the time. As I said, we went from the webinar to open call, and maybe it's also good that we experienced this change, because a webinar these days, and I'm sure you have been on many, a webinar is often a pre-recorded session. So you would be greeted by somebody like Paulina, who we will come to in a minute, and then you would see something pre-recorded. It's like somebody talking over slides, and it'll all be perfect and nice, but you wouldn't be able to interact the way we do this in this webinar. And I think there's a huge difference there, and I want you to experience the other part of it. So first of all, I would like to ask you to use the chat and tell me where you are. We already had some people, some of you chiming in saying, Enrique is in Myanmar, Ogaliana is in Bonn, Yeti is in Guatemala, PJ is in Singapore, Helena is in Bonn. Is there anybody who hasn't posted in the chat where they are? Because we're really on all continents today. So please share with us. Noko, South Africa, hi there, Noko. I'm in New York. Another, Era is joining us from Bonn. Hi, Era. And we're still welcoming new people here in the webinar. Queens, there you go. Big shout out across the river. And this is truly a global workshop, almost from all continents. And this is, I think, what the beauty is of Deutsche Welle Akademie, connecting people across the world. So the other thing I would ask you to do now is to change your Zoom name. It's also a great exercise to do when you host anything virtually. So when you're in the Zoom desktop app, you click on these 3 blue buttons that you see when you move the mouse over the screen that shows your name. And you can just click on rename and put in your location. So I'll go there and say Felix, and then put in New York City. And now you see in the Zoom app that my name just changed. So you can do the same thing. Just click on these 3 buttons. PJ, you're using the app. Let me see if that's possible too. I think it's possible. Yes, it is possible. I will share a link with you that tells you, PJ, how to do it in the app. Wait a second. You got it? Okay, great. Thank you. So now you already have a completely different feeling here, right? Because some people have already changed their names, and immediately there's a different feeling in the room because you're constantly being surrounded by these global places. We see also anybody who hasn't used the chat. We see Pong Pan has joined us from Bangkok, Vareta from Kenya, and PJ is in Singapore, right? So it immediately gives the entire name using a different feeling. So that's just one little hint. Yeti said he's on the app too. So PJ, maybe you can share in the chat on how to use the app to change the name. I'll also post a link here that helps you changing your name on Zoom on the phone. And yeah, that said, I want to give a round of applause to the person that made all of this happen, that brought us together here from 5 continents. Please applaud for Paulina Tillmann, who is joining us from Germany and who is leading this series of workshops for Deutsche Welle. Hi, Paulina. How's it going?
Hi, Felix. Thank you. I sent Felix the links to the last webinars that we organized. There were 6 of them since August 2019. And he did not mention that he would like to crack everything and he would like to make it completely different. But I'm really surprised and I'm looking forward to the session in the next 90 minutes. Just the advice that if you do have any questions, please write them in the chat box. And the session will be recorded and uploaded on YouTube for the people who are not joining us today. So I'm looking forward to the session. Thank you, Felix.
Thank you, Paulina. Yeah, this is what I do. I disrupt a lot of things in journalism, just like everybody you out there. You're all innovators. You're all people who think differently about what media should be, what your community, what your country should be like, how people should communicate. So I'm glad that Paulina was so open to invite me and to, interact with each other in the way we're doing it today. And that said, I would like to show you another way of opening a virtual experience together. In this time, we are all in our homes. I'm in my daughter's room that I just kicked her out because it's early morning here. So she wasn't very pleased. But this is where I am these days. And you're all in your respective homes, which adds a lot of intimacy to our calls these days. It adds when you host a workshop and you do it from your home, it's completely different than from an anonymous conference room. Our band is in their living room. They have set up a makeshift studio there. Some of you might be, at parents' homes or at friends' homes. So that said, I would like to open this workshop also to sync with one another, to synchronize, because we're physically so distanced. We're in complete different state of minds. And what we do on Remote Daily, the live talk show that I host on Zoom every day, is we breathe together, because that way we can synchronize and breathe together and just relax, because we're all in a lot of Zoom calls every day and a lot of, weird experiences going through strange times on the lockdown. So I invite you to put your phone away for a minute, other than using your Zoom app on your phone. Then of course, let it stay next to you, PJ and Yeti. But other than that, put any distraction out of the way and let's breathe together. Let's put our feet on the floor, both feet on the floor, just sit upright. And just put both your hands on your body, one on the chest and the other one on the belly. And just close your eyes for a second and just breathe deeply with me. And after 3 or 4 breaths, take the deepest breath you have taken today. 2, 3, hold. 2, 3, out. And one very deep breath again. 2, 3, hold. 2, out. All right. Now shake everything off. Shake your arms. Shake your legs, roll your neck, let it crack. Mine cracks a lot these days. Roll your shoulders and flutter your eyes open again, and welcome back. And maybe you feel what just happened. We all did this together. We all took a moment to rest, to maybe some thoughts, some emotions came to your mind. But we did this in the same time all across the world. And this is also a way to gather people virtually. And to, just sync with each other. And now, if you feel comfortable doing so, please switch on your video. So just go to the Zoom app menu bar and switch on your videos if you feel comfortable. And then if you're on the Zoom app, you can just do one swipe, or on the desktop app, you click on gallery view on the top right corner, because then you will see each other all around the world. And we will be able to say hi and do a nice wave. Hi in Guatemala, Yangon, Myanmar, Bonn. Who else is joining us? Bonn, Kenya. Wow, beautiful. Singapore, Paulina's there. Yeah, this is great. Thank you for being on this open Zoom call together. And I guess this is another way of, you know, showing appreciation that people are taking the time. It's hard to focus on a video screen. But hi there in Bangkok. If you do it together, it takes a little bit of weight away, right? So if you're in a workshop, I do this no matter if it's huge corporations or if it's, you know, people that have never been on a Zoom call, always do this to build this connection. And what I also do is I cheer. So if you have a coffee mug next to you or a water, I actually forgot mine because it's so early in the morning in New York that I still haven't got my morning coffee, but I'll just get it. And in the meantime, if you haven't got your coffee or your glass of wine yet, and you need something to cheer, some orange juice, get it. I'll be back in 30 seconds. Thank you for waiting.
We can do some music while we're waiting for Felix. Cualquier cosa. Dale. Ba 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 da 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 da.
So how is that?
Ba ba ba
All right.
ba 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 ba. Welcome back, Felix.
It's good to have a band in the house. Thank you both so very much. And I also encourage you to join their Zoom concerts. They're amazing. On eleanordubinsky.com, you can find all their shows. They play for people like you all across the world, and highly invite you to do so. Thank you for this little break. And now let's cheer. This is your virtual cling for the day. It's good to see you all. Cheers from New York City, around the world. So, you know, maybe you wonder what the hell I'm doing here, why we have a live band, why I'm cheering with you, why I'm breathing with you. I think it's very important in this virtual time to create an experience that we would not have in a room together. If we would sit in a conference room right now at Deutsche Welle somewhere, there wouldn't be a live band. I wouldn't cheer with you. I might not breathe with you because I've never done this before, right? In a setting like this. We would all rely on nonverbal conversation. I would feel how your energy is. I would maybe talk to one another, do some small talk in the beginning, right? We will all roll in at the same time. But this is all gone. This is a completely new environment. And I think you cannot transport your analog experiences, no matter if that's teaching students, helping people to understand media, helping people to, you know, create new content. You cannot do this in the same way you did it before. That's why I showed you all these methods on creating a virtual space where people feel connected. It also means for me as a moderator, I constantly have to find a way to look into the little green light here on top of my screen instead of looking at you. Maybe you have already realized this is one of the hardest things we're all doing right now. And the other thing I wanted to invite you is to also look at where my camera is positioned, right? So I had help from a friend who is a professional cameraman who just yesterday looked at my video screen and helped me figure out what the perfect height is for my laptop. Because usually what you see these days is this, right? So you look into my nose instead of my eyes, and you talk to somebody who feels like he's, you know, double as tall as you and has all power over you. While this gives us a feeling of kind of eye levelness, straight connection. So I invite you all, while we're talking over the next few minutes, to get books. I see, for example, Bea in Cologne has a lot of books behind her. Use your books, get your laptop or your phone higher, and try to look at the camera on eye level. This is a huge game changer for any kind of virtual experience you're putting on. And I see Helene is already getting books. Whatever you have. In my case, it's not books. I tried it with books, but I don't have the right books, so I couldn't figure it out. So I used, just gonna share here, I used I have two daughters, and one of their toy boxes had to, you know, had to suffer. I'm using their milk crates now to get on the right height for you to speak to you on eye level. But it makes a huge difference for any virtual experience that you're creating to change the position of your camera. And if you're in a room without daylight, as I think Pongpan, for example, in Bangkok is, there's very cheap lights that you can put in the front of your laptop that lighten up your face. And in my case, I'm sitting in front of a window. So I've covered the window to have only a little light, you see it in my glasses, that comes through, and it gives me some sort of natural lighting. You can also put something on your desk, like white paper that reflects light that comes from above, just to give your face a more natural lighting. So while you experiment around with that, I will continue. And what are today's goals, right? We had it in the announcement. I'm just going to post them in the chat here. Today's goals are transforming analog into virtual experiences. We already talked a little about that. So today's goal is creating great openers, icebreakers, and closing rituals for virtual sessions. I've already given you live music, yoga breathing, cheers, chat shares, right? All the things that made you arrive. Finding out-of-the-box exercises designed for remote learning, we'll look into that, and exploring new tools for virtual collaboration, teamwork, and knowledge sharing. So this is really what we do today. And exercises designed for remote learning is something I would like to try out with you now, because maybe you have seen there's so many platforms out there that try to compete with each other when it comes to remote learning, remote working with each other. So I'm only going to share a few selected ones with you today that I found to be very useful. And one of them is Slido. I'm going to put the, or maybe we can do a chat share. Who of you knows Slido? Just give me a quick Y or an N for no. Great. So we have a mix of knowledge here, which is great. I think this makes total sense to share it with you. So here is a link that I've created for you. If you click on that or copy paste it in your browser, you will find a little survey. And this survey is created by Slido, a free platform. I think the startup is, it's kind of a media startup, you could say, from Slovakia, I believe. Started a few years ago and has become really powerful for virtual events all around the world. You can use it in big conference rooms, but also in a setting like this one. So I created a poll for you there to ask you, which of these openers could you see yourself using for a virtual workshop? And you can choose live music, yoga breathing, virtual chat question, or live poll, and just vote. You can use more, you can choose more than one and send it. And I will share with you, once you have logged in there, I will share with you what the responses look like. So here you go. These responses are coming in live. And you can see the more people, you know, if you would have a workshop with hundreds of people, this would be like moving like crazy. So it's a really nice live experience. But it also gives us a nice introduction into what you might be wanting, what you might want to do, because probably 10 minutes or 20 minutes ago, you weren't thinking about putting live music into a workshop. Now you're considering it. The same with having a chat question or a virtual cheers, right? It's something you or I haven't thought about before this pandemic began, and I was, you know, going live all the time. But now it's something that we all want to do. So this is just one example. Another example for how to open, how to create rituals for people to go back to. And now I invite you to, before we go to having our musicians on for just a quick break and then say goodbye to them, now I invite you to take a step back behind the scenes. We just started with you sharing your video, and you're maybe trying to get more on eye level. but there's so many other things that can happen when you are in a virtual workshop setting. For instance, your internet, right? So I have had Wi-Fi issues on my own live show. It's very unfortunate because you don't know. And then other people start texting you, hey, I can't see you, or your video is stopping, right? So it's important, if you can, to check your Wi-Fi before. Zoom, for instance, has a recommendation. I'm going to post it here in the chat. Like minimum bandwidth, it's 600 kbps up and down, and recommended is 1.5 megabits per second, right? So that's quite a fast connection that Zoom is actually recommending for it to work properly. And to find out what your connection is, you can just use a free tool ahead of your workshop, ahead of the virtual experience that you're hosting, and just check through speed test, what is my Wi-Fi like? Is this enough? Do I maybe need to add something? Do I need to go someplace else where there's public Wi-Fi? Do I maybe stream from my phone, which I also have done, right? Because my Wi-Fi wasn't good enough. So another thing you can do ahead of time, like leveling your camera, right? To help you host a better experience for people. And the third thing I wanted to share with you is the platform. We're on Zoom right now, and just give me a wink here if you have been on a Zoom meeting today already. Just give me a yes or a no. Or if this is your first one. So depending on the time zone, I guess, we have kind of a 50% chance that you have been on a Zoom meeting today, because we're all living on Zoom. And Zoom has become a new social network with all its good and bads, right? So Zoom is now a place where people get married or engaged. There are funerals on Zoom. There are Shivas on Zoom. There are birthdays, there are happy hours. Pretty much our entire life has moved over to Zoom. Why Zoom? Because it's been there for a while. Has been marketing itself well, but there's a plethora of competitors of other platforms. And so I just want to share with you a white paper that friends of mine just published on hosting virtual events and meetings. By the way, you'll get a handout afterwards where I collect all these links that I'm going to share with you today. But I'm just going to post them in the chat for you so you can access this right now and look at it with me together. So I'm going to share my screen again. And this white paper is, really interesting. It gives you some nice inroads into how to transform your analog into virtual events. But I'm just going to scroll through here. You can read this up if you have the time. And I'm going to go right to the platforms. So they did a very nice overview of some of the platforms that are out there. And depending on the time zone, the geographical region, the place in the world you're at, the kind of work that you do, you might encounter many of these. So there's Big Marker. I just saw Wall Street Journal using Big Marker for a live event. Very interesting platform, very powerful, but very one-way street. I wouldn't be able to see you. It's webinar only. It's very produced. It's like television, right? Vimeo is great for live streaming. It has a good integration into all kinds of platforms, but of course, no networking whatsoever, right? Hopin is a platform that's been really popular among a lot of people because it, like Zoom, also gives a possibility to host breakout rooms to get people together. It has a very seamless integration. It's not cheap, but it's also pretty powerful. You can have a lot of attendees at the same time. So Hopin, I would say, next to Zoom, is probably the platform that I have been seeing a lot of small companies, a lot of startups using these days. There are a few more. Run the World is one. Then there are, of course, for webinars only, there's Crowdcast, which a lot of people in Germany, for instance, use. There's Webinar Jam. And they're using Zoom here as a webinar tool. I use it mostly as a call tool. Why do I use Zoom so much? It's not only because many of you, a lot of people know it and use it. It's also rather cheap comparatively. And the quality of audio and video is comparatively also pretty great. It's been very stable. in the beginning, when this pandemic started and the lockdown began, a lot of people went onto Zoom, and Zoom, for the first time in its history, I think the company was founded in 2011, had bandwidth issues. So they had to buy a lot of server space. Zoom is hiring people right now in the minute. Every day they're hiring people. It's crazy. The company has been increasing tenfold since the pandemic began. They had a lot of data privacy issues. Maybe you saw that, because they were never prepared to be a social platform for the whole life to be mirrored. But they still are doing pretty well. They have managed to fix bugs, to increase the quality, to not have any, issues with the video stream. So that's why I use it. And I also, as I said, use it because it's a little cheaper. But I'm not partnering with Zoom or whatsoever. I'm just sharing this with you very honestly, just as my subjective viewpoint. GoToWebinar is a platform that also a lot of people are using. You might also have seen WebEx or BlueJeans, which I think just was acquired by Cisco, who is hosting WebEx. You've probably seen Google Meet. Of course, they just opened their platform for free to big webinars. So there's a lot out there, and I just encourage you, when you're starting to host experiences, play around with them, right? Think about what you want to do and play around with the platform so you find the one that's suited best for you. In my case, again, it was Zoom. And of course, this is a free white paper. Download it, use it, share it. Enrique from Yangon just asked in the chat, and of course I encourage you to use the chat all the time for questions and comments, what is the best tool for sensitive workshops and meetings? So that maybe gives me an opportunity to talk about Remote Daily, which then will give you another music break. So a few weeks back, I was on the last flight from Germany to the United States before the Trump travel ban began. I was teaching journalists in Germany. I do this every quarter. I teach young journalists to develop media projects like the ones you're doing. And in the middle of the night and that week, which was in mid-March, my wife called me. It was literally like 2:30 in the morning. My hotel room door opened, and the owner of the hotel I was like shocked, because it was like in a horror movie, right? Your hotel room door shouldn't just open in the middle of the night. But there she was, the owner of the hotel, and she said, your wife wants you to call her. And I was like, oh my God. And then I called her, and Christina, who's a Newswire reporter for a German press agency, DPA, called me in the middle of the night because she was following Trump's statement about closing Europe off to the United States. And for a few minutes or half an hour, we didn't know whether we're going to see each other again, because Trump didn't make any statement on whether there would be any exceptions. Then his secretary put out a statement about an hour later saying that people who have a green card or family in the United States can actually return. But this was one of the worst hours I've had this year. So I booked a flight that same night, and I came back to New York. And Germany has been a little bit ahead in this whole pandemic. So I could see already things closing down. I could see Frankfurt Airport being completely vacated. And when I landed in New York, things were still up and running. There was no controls, there was no checking, there was no tests, there was no coronavirus, right? But I knew that the community that I'm hosting with our conferences on the future of work would, over a matter of days, transition to going to work from home, right? So I gathered my small team here in New York, and I said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do now? Because our business will be over soon. There won't be any conferences anymore. We won't have any revenue. We won't have anything. And we decided to reduce our team, to reduce our salaries, to do all the hard decisions that a lot of you and a lot of companies are going through right now. But we also decided to be proactive around it. And one way of doing that was to go live online, virtually, every day and be there for our community. And this is why we started Remote Daily. And Remote Daily is an hour every day that we host live from New York City with all the openers that I just showed you, with a guest that we host for a conversation, for a fireside chat, and with breakout rooms for people to connect with each other. I just shared the link with you in the chat. And why am I telling you all this? Because Enrique just asked, what is the best tool for sensitive workshops? So on Remote Daily, we've had really candid conversations on trauma, on food security, on companies firing people, right? We had a birthday edition for my birthday last week where people shared stories from all the world. People cried, people got very emotional, me too. And it was only possible because we created a safe space for people to do that. And we do that on Zoom. Now, has this always been like that? No. In the beginning, we were not a safe space because I was totally naive. We were just having an open Zoom call. You could just log in via a link that I just shared everywhere on Twitter, on LinkedIn. And there were a lot of people joining us every day, right? But then one day, and that was actually in week 2, we got Zoom bombed. So out of a sudden, we had people in our Zoom call that started screaming. Now, back then, Zoom didn't have a way to mute everybody quickly. And when somebody started unmuting themselves and screaming, they were the loudest in the room, and they were on the screen that I'm with you now. They were on the speaker screen. So very hard to deal with, right? So I ended the meeting and we tried to reboot it. A lot of people came back. They came back too. I had blocked them in the meantime. You can block people on Zoom as well. They came back, started taking over the screen share. Another very interesting thing. So the screen share option can be controlled when you click on the desktop app on screen share, and you switch to who can share only host. There's a little button next to sharing screen. You probably don't have that option right now because you're not hosts of this Zoom call. But if you're the host, click on the little arrow next to screen share and say only hosts can share the screen. Very important. After this experience, they tried to share graphic content on the screen, right? We shut down. I wrote everybody an email. I wrote 80 emails that afternoon to everybody who was attending, and we shared everything we had learned. We didn't know back then there was a thing like Zoom bombing. We didn't know back then that Zoom just 24 hours before had a video on security that they shared on YouTube. But that afternoon, we went on a learning curve like this. And it was a Friday, and the next Monday, we started from scratch. We had a safe meeting. You have to sign up online. You can't just hop on. We control the chat, we control the screen share, we control the audio, right? And this is how we created a workshop, a safe space for sensitive content. And since then, our numbers went down because it's harder to log on, right? But our safety and our security and the feeling in the room went up. And a lot of people now that are on Remote Daily every day, we have people from all around the world that join us every day, say, this is my safe space. This is my oasis. I can relax here. I can share. I feel safe. And this is something we created. It's not about the platform. It's not about the tool. It's the way we use the tool. So thank you, Enrique, for this, I think, very important question, because a lot of what you do is, I know, is around safety and can be an issue when you have people join that you do not want to have join. That said, we are at halftime, and let's come back from behind the scenes because it's about you now. It's about the talking part, and for that talking part, I'd like to bring our band back in. This duo is multilingual, just like many of you guys. They usually play large stages in New York City. Now they're here with us, also at home, and we get to experience them on a completely different level. And maybe before Eleanor and Dario, before you play another song for us for halftime, and then have to hop off to get your morning coffee, maybe you can share one more thing with us, which is, I would love to ask you, is there something that you have learned in the weeks since the pandemic began about your art? You already talked about, how you started Zoom concerts and how this brought another audience. But is it something you have learned about making music in a virtual space that you can share, that is about your craft? Sorry for putting you on the spot here, but I know that you always have smart answers.
It's a good question. I do think a lot of this time has been about figuring out how to communicate our craft differently. So we're transitioning into a time when I think things have calmed down to the point where we can now start to focus on more long-term projects or the craft itself. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to make, actually it's an incredible opportunity to do some recording. We have more time. We are home much more. But I don't know about all of you. I struggle with both this feeling like I should be using this time for projects that I haven't had time to get to, and also feeling like half of my brain is focused on what's happening in the world and just all the changes. So it's been hard to actually focus on those deeper projects and not only in just adapting, reacting, adapting. We
Can
have,
you maybe
yeah.
share, has it been very hard for you to just technically make music work via Zoom? Do you have like build a huge studio behind the screen that we're seeing on you on now, or has that been rather easy?
Yeah, actually, I know a little bit about that. I had a studio, so I really know how to deal with technology and this, but I had to do some research, and I'm still doing some research about that,
There's a
and we're
microphone
trying all the time to improve. I don't know if you realize that our sound changed for this.
Dramatically, yes.
Yeah, so we are using all like more gear, and yeah, I'm trying things all the time, and the thing is, there's not so much information about this because it's really new.
And Dario, like all the journalists here who are going to host their workshops or already have started to host workshops virtually, is there a way, because I'm just using my crappy Apple headset here, is there a way to produce like really great audio when you're just a speaker and not a musician?
Yeah, actually, the best it's always to have a microphone like this. There are many kind of microphones. There are cheap ones that works very well with voice, and then there is some settings that you have to.
I can put it in the chat if Dario wants to talk. I can write it in. But there are some simple settings that you can do with your audio that allow you to have a better quality sound, even with your headphones or your computer audio. Dario, do you want to talk and I'll type?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. If you go to the audio settings, if you're using your computer, when you see the microphone on the corner, if you click on the
audio
corner,
settings?
Yeah, audio settings, you go to audio settings.
Yeah, where it says mute, and then you click on that little arrow. You can select at the bottom, says audio settings.
Yeah.
Here, I'll help you.
And then in audio settings, you have the automatically adjust microphone volume. If that's activate, if you
deactivate,
if you disable that, actually you have to disable that if you are using a microphone, an external microphone. If not, keep it that way. And then in advanced, you have
at
more
the bottom
options.
you have another button that says advanced, and it takes you to another screen.
And you have to enable the option to enable original sound.
That's something we learned from the Zoom. Yeah. So enable original sound. It usually gives you a prompt at the top of your screen, but if not, you can find that in advanced. I'll put it in the chat.
And then
I did that already. Okay.
And then suppress persistent background noise. You have to disable that. And the other one, intermittent background noise, also disable that. And echo cancellation, automatic. That way, you'll have a better sound, but you need a more silent room. So if you're in a noisy room, that's gonna be.
If you're in a noisy room, don't do that.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for these tips. I think what it shows you here, I hope you had the chance to dive in a little bit with us into the Zoom settings. Every video conferencing app has similar settings, but it shows you that the app is doing a lot for you. It tries to regulate your sounds. It tries to dim down background noise. It tries to change the background even in the foreground of your camera. The apps are doing a lot for you. And the more you do to improve your appearance on the screen, the more you have to tell the app, let me do it. So with the sound, you have to try around. You have to play around. You have to connect with. Maybe one last question to you, Dario. You now have a microphone. Do you have a USB microphone, or do you go through a mixer? Like, how do you actually connect it to the...
Yeah, we have an audio interface with two inputs, one for the guitar and another one for the microphone. And
So
now
it's a physical interface you're using?
Exactly.
Okay.
But if you're going to use it only for talking, with an USB microphone, it's
Perfect.
more than enough. Yeah.
Okay. I just turned on my original sound. I don't know whether it's different now, but thank you for the advice. And that said, you all, we're at halftime. We're going to let our musicians give us one more song before they go off to their well-deserved morning coffee. And for you all, lean back, enjoy the music, get your coffee or your glass of wine, and put your comments in the chat.
And I also want to offer, if anyone does have specific audio questions, they can email us. We're happy to answer them. It's just info@eleanordubinsky.com. You can see my name in our window. So just info, or go to my website even. You can send us a message, but we're happy to give you a little tutorial about audio. I know for some people who are not used to these kinds of things, it feels like a big unknown. So little things can help a lot. All right.
Thank you, Eleanor and Dario. I will add one more thing here. While you're playing, I will put a question in the chat that I would like to discuss with all of you afterwards. It's a big question, so I give you some minutes to think about it. Thank you. Back to the band.
We're going to play a song. We're going to play, speaking of international, Dario is from Argentina. We're going to sing, I'm going to sing a song called Amándote, which is from Uruguay, also very well known in Argentina. It means loving you. Algún día verás que me voy a morir, amándote, amándote, amándote. Algún día sabrás lo que ha sido vivir, amándote, amándote, amándote. Quizás comprenderás lo mucho que sufrí, amándote, amándote, amándote. Quizás entenderás todo lo que perdí, amándote, amándote, amándote. Y la muchacha me dijo, no te enamores de nadie, no te enamores de nadie, me dijo, no te enamores de nadie, mi vida, mi amor, con un beso me dijo, no te enamores de nadie, no te enamores de nadie, me dijo, no te enamores de nadie. Algún día verás que me voy a morir, amándote, amándote, amándote. Algún día sabrás lo que ha sido vivir, amándote, amándote, amándote. Con un beso me dijo, no te enamores de nadie, no te enamores de nadie, me dijo, no te enamores de nadie, mi vida, mi amor, al acostarnos me dijo, no te enamores de nadie, no te enamores de nadie, me dijo, no te enamores de nadie. Amándote.
Thank you so very much. A large round of virtual applause here for our music duo. I see it in the Zoom app as well, how much applause you're receiving. I just allowed myself to share your email here in the chat so that people can reach out to you if you need your own live band, or if you want to join their Zoom concerts. Please use the chat. And this is the question I just wanted to pose to you as a conversation starter. I would really like to know from all of you, because you all do amazing work. I have looked at your companies and your projects, and I was just mesmerized. I mean, you're doing things that most people wouldn't be brave enough doing. And I'm really honored to spend time with you today. And in order to start conversing, please turn on your video. Think about the question that I just posted in the chat, which is, what is emerging right now that you want more of in your life? And while you think about that, which, because it's a really big question, I want to give the opportunity to say goodbye to our musicians live from New York City. Of course, I know that it's been very early in the morning, but I think you did an amazing job of helping us to center and to feel that emotions are possible via Zoom. So thank you both, and
Thank you.
see you later today on the show.
Great.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. And I'll just use this moment to share my answer to this question while you're still thinking, and then we'll just go, I'll just call up your names, and then we'll see what your answers are. So what I see emerging right now is compassion for each other. And I would say that we're probably physically more distanced than ever, but I think emotionally more connected than ever. And my work is a lot around that. And this is what I want more of in my life. I want less conversations, and especially I'm saying this as an immigrant in America, where I have the feeling we're just, you know, hopping around the elephant in the room and not really talking about things. And I want more real talk and more real connection. So that is what I want emerging in my life. And I think through the format that I'm hosting, I'm trying to get close to it. But now over to you. I'm so excited to talk to you. And thanks again for joining this webinar. I'd like to use these next 30 minutes to really connect and exchange. And maybe we can start with Pongpan over there in Bangkok. I think you were the first one to switch on your video. So I'm gonna unmute you, or you did yourself, thank you, and ask you and say hi first of all, and great to see you. And what is emerging that you want more of in your life?
Thank you for your sharing today. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sure. I think for me, maybe I look for more opportunity as I'm working on online media in authoritarian country and amid this pandemic situation. So in our newsroom, there are some unstable, both in healthy issue and both in security issue. So for me and for our team, we try the safest way for newsroom. But what we want more, I think we need some more stable situation or stable factor so that we can maintain our journalism duty.
Thank you so much, Pongpan, for being the first here to share. And I can, of course, totally understand that this is what you're looking for. And I hope that maybe through the conversation that we're having now, we will get more answers to your question. I might go over to Noko next in Johannesburg. Hi, Noko, it's good to see you. I hope you're doing fine. And I would love to hear from you what is emerging right now that you want more of in your life.
Hi, Felix. Thanks for hosting this session. I think for me, what's emerging is the need to. So a lot of our sort of collaboration happens in a physical space. So while we are organized for this sort of virtual working experience, we still need sort of physical engaging and talking to each other and sharing ideas. And I feel like I need that in my life while we do these virtual calls to sort of brainstorm ideas. It's still not the same as having people across from you and you can engage with the non-verbal sort of side of things as well. So yeah, I'm keen to have more of that in my life right now.
Thank you. Yes, this is a huge topic here as well, how we can actually, collaborate in this time, and how we can actually find ways to do that in a way that it feels human. And I think there is huge opportunities. I'll share some tools with you later before we end these 90 minutes together that might help you get a start. But I think everybody's their own gatekeeper now, and this is a really weird moment because everybody's kind of falling back on the community or the people around them, or the people who are not there, right, who are really missing and hurting. So thank you for saying that. And I might want to continue with Lucia in Guatemala. Lucia, is it possible for you to unmute your speaker and maybe even your video and join us? And oh yeah, there you are. Hi. And share with us what is emerging that you would want more in your life.
I would say also even though we had I'm very surprised about the way that we have handled working remotely with all the journalists. But also I think that just sharing normal interaction every day is something that I do miss a lot. And I think even journalists are being a little even more productive because everybody's more focused in the office because it's an open space. Usually it gets a little loud. So, just collaborating with ideas it is a little hard, just to have that interaction.
Yes, and I know that there's a huge need also, I think, in your current situation for remote work and remote collaboration. And thank you, Lucia, for sharing that. And maybe I will, while we're talking, look for some little hints there, because of course today is more about getting your analog virtual experiences out in the virtual world. But I know the base of all of that is that we work remotely together in a way that makes sense. And I'm happy to talk about it. Paulina, I think, is already planning on having an entire webinar just around this topic, because obviously it's, as a future of work guides or journalists, it's what I talk about every day. That said, I would love to continue with PJ in Singapore, who just turned on his video. Hi, PJ, it's good to see you. Maybe you would like to share with us as well what is emerging right now that you want more of in your life. You're still on mute?
Well, sure. Well, I think the last few days have been pretty bad for me because my government's been after me again. They do that regularly, trying to suppress, free media in Singapore. But what I realize is that a lot of my impact can be done online. And so what I like that is emerging is that increasingly you can, we're becoming normalized to, or the kind of space or distance that you need to reach out and connect to people is shrinking. And if I was in another country, I could actually continue to do this work and be a lot less worried about my safety. So I really like that this normalization of things like Zoom, the ability for us to connect with people online, to have an impact potentially around the world, even though we're not physically there. I'm enjoying not traveling so much, being with my family. So I guess the decline of this the distance and our ability to or I guess the shrinking of the distance of space between us is something I'd love to see a lot more of, and would, I think, also help a lot of us who are living in under some risk. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, and I guess this probably accounts for all of you that there's tremendous opportunity in this weird time for people who work investigatively, for people who work under pressure, to just connect with each other, because everybody has the chance, or is it now used to being connected non-analog and in a virtual sense, and it's become much more seamless for people. So we just had on our daily live talk show, we just had somebody who works at Zoom, the company we are using right now. And Zoom has pretty much moved their entire work life onto their own platform. So what that means is they do not see this as an event as we're doing now. We're like, wow, there's this workshop starting at, you know, so-and-so full hour, I have to be there. They're using this platform as a means of connecting with each other at any time during the day. And that means, for instance, they have their morning coffee together on Zoom. They do a walk around the block on Zoom and do housekeeping, right? Oh, what do I have to do today? The classic like morning stand-up. They just walk around the block using Zoom and showing each other their neighborhoods they're in. They have coffee on Zoom together, lunch on Zoom together. I mean, you might think this is a little extreme, but I think to PJ's point, it's a way to breaking this barrier and to be as connected and safe in this virtual space as you would normally be in an office. And it creates tremendous opportunity because everybody can come in and join from wherever they are and feel safe there. And that way, Zoom is using Zoom is, to me, is a great example for, you know, to break down the event barrier and to say, we're just moving our lives there. We're going to be as productive, as secure, as powerful in this virtual space. There's another tool that I would like to share with you that a lot of people use right now. It is from the gaming space, and people use it to stay in touch with each other, even if there is not a strong video connection. So I'm just going to post it in the chat here. It is called Discord. Discord is, I'm going to share the screen with you. People who are in gaming a lot might know it already. It is a way to connect seamlessly and to chat just on audio with each other. And gamers use it, of course, when they play these large open source role games. But now a lot of teams are using it. And I encourage you, especially if you're in a part of the world where maybe there, and I just realized that I shared it not with everyone here in the chat, so I'm going to put in the link again. When you're in a part of the world, you have people joining you that do not have a very good connection to the internet. This is a great way to communicate or just over voice, right? And actually what Zoom, the company, is doing, another way of staying in touch and not being on video all the time, is you can just have chats. So Zoom has actually a lot of different, uses chat, Zoom chat that we have all in our app in a lot of different ways. So they have chats open simultaneously that they just use for different purposes. So similar to Slack, they have Zoom chats open for different topics that they come back to. And it's a great way for, you know, planning and for using the Zoom app in a way that fits your needs. So that's just a few examples of how work is moving in this virtual space, and maybe also helpful for your future teamwork. And this actually brings me to the tools that I would like to share with you today. So as I said, there's a plethora of tools. I mean, there's so many tools right now because all the startups that have started tools, they're seeing their chance right now, right? So they're investing in marketing. They want to be out there. They want to be seen. They want to help. They start, you know, opening their their premium accounts for free. So you get probably bombarded with a lot of these offers. So I just want to share a few, right? A few that I have found helpful, entertaining, relevant. And you might know some of them, but I just wanted to like give them to you so you can play with them. And as I said, there will be a handout for you where I collect all these links. So one tool that is being used widely in the United States, and a lot of people, especially in the startup world, use is Calendly. Calendly is just a great way of going around okay, when should we have a call? Do you think Wednesday at 3 p.m. or Friday at 1 p.m.? It opens calendars that people can log into your personal calendar and just arrange a meeting with you in a time that you give them from your own calendar. So it's a very seamless way of arranging meetings, Calendly. Then for educators, if you're doing educational work, there are great platforms for engaging students, and especially students because they're laid out in a way that is more towards the educational fields. So Socrative is one, and Poll Everywhere is the other one. I just invite you to, while I'm sharing these tools, to open them on your browser, play around. Socrative is a classroom app, so to speak, that enables you to for free to put in quizzes, ask quick questions, do a class count if you have a larger group, also create personalized activities, and then also follow up with people to teach or give out remote learning opportunities. Poll Everywhere is, as the name says, a tool just like Slido that we used in the beginning to capture feedback. It's more of a corporate tool that a lot of enterprises use, but there's also solutions for educators or smaller companies that are not expensive. So when you want to gather live audience feedback, that's also a great tool to use. Then I want to go over to the new whiteboard, so to speak. So there's one fun thing on Zoom itself. So when you click on the little on the little yellow or white, gray, or in my case, green arrow next to share screen, you can go to, on the share screen button, I should say. When you click on that on your desktop Zoom app, on the share screen button, you will have a new window pop up. And in this window, you can choose the parts of your screen that you want to share. But there's also a whiteboard option. And this whiteboard option can actually be really fun. I just shared it with you because you can, on this whiteboard, draw something. You can do mind maps. You can, ask a question here. You can create art together. You can do all kinds of things that engage people and help people to create something in the virtual space that you would usually do in a classroom or in a newsroom, right? So another great way of using Zoom, but there is a lot of whiteboard startups out there right now as well. And I just want to share the three most popular with you here. Whimsical calls itself like a visual workspace. And this is pretty much what all of these are, right? So they give you the opportunity to map something, to post notes, to build some wireframes in case you build a new website, to have charts, and maybe you talk about your organization or an investigation you're doing. Mural, kind of similar to that, a little more free-flowing, a little more on the design edge. So it's more, I would say, if you host a workshop and you have people, creating something together, I would say Mural is probably a great solution. Or if you are in a design kind of environment where you're, really thinking about a visual solution for something, Mural is a great thing. And then Klaxoon is a company that is also into teamwork. If you click on klaxoon.com and the link that I just shared with you, it's a startup from France, actually, and you see their Operation Remote Work, a link there. They have just opened their entire platform for 3 months free trial. And Klaxoon is kind of fascinating. It's a suite of tools. It's not just one. And they give you a virtual workspace very similar to Mural, where you can stick photos, post-it notes. You can create polls and brainstorms and clouds of words, right? So it has a lot of these tools together in one platform, I think, that a lot of others have. And I just invite you, why am I sharing so many of these with you? play around with them, find out what's good for you and what's good for your audience. I think that's really important before you start using them. And, you know, maybe lastly, it's also good to have some fun. We did some icebreakers in the beginning. We had live music, we had the breathing, we had the cheers. And if you look for tools that maybe are a little more on the entertaining end, one that I have seen people use, and that's a great way of just, you know, just having fun together, is the Snapchat camera. And I also post the 3 links here for you. The, oops, sorry, those are too many. Let me do that again. So here are the fun tools. So Snapchat has released a camera that allows you to use all kinds of filters. I'm not going to do it now because I wouldn't start playing around with it. But you can basically have a cat on your head, or you can turn into a monster or a cartoon figure. So especially when you are, you know, in a situation where you have a happy hour, or you're in a workshop with kids, or you have something, you know, you have a birthday party for one of your colleagues or employees. Use that, play around with it, right? Let people have fun and do silly things on Zoom. It's not just a business tool. We're living a virtual life right now. Include these things. Kahoot, the second link I shared here with you, is a platform that comes also from the educational background and is offering a lot of games that you can play. So is it a trivia quiz, or you know, like something with multiple choice, or kind of a more deeper learning experience? Kahoot is a great platform. It's out there. It's been out there for a while, and it's really powerful if you start playing around with it. It's great to use in a you know, for training, for learning, for interactive presentations, a full suite of tools. And the last link here, why not having some fun on Zoom, right? So you might have seen that there is a llama that you can invite on Zoom. Some people in the UK, and I'm just gonna share that on my screen with you, because I think you're doing very serious work, but it's also good to have some fun sometimes. So these people in England, they have a farm, and they just came up with a genius idea. You can invite a goat to your virtual meeting. So, you know, they're finding a way to make you have some fun with your colleagues, but they're also finding a way to make some extra money in a time where every small business is under lockdown. So there's all these things out there that you can add to your virtual meetings that go from very serious and collaborative and diving deep into a topic to like going totally bonkers and just have fun together. And I really invite you to use all of them. So that said, I bombarded the chat here with all the links. As I said, I will share a Google Doc with you where all these links are connected. And coming to the maybe most futuristic part of the tools that I wanted to share with you. There is now a new set of tools emerging for remote collaboration that I would call kind of the future of Google Docs. And maybe it's not the right thing for a virtual workshop, but I heard from a lot of you that you are now, you know, moving your newsrooms remotely, that you're trying to find out these new ways of remote collaboration. And I think for these use cases, the tools that I'm sharing now with you as the last set of tools are really powerful. So the links just came in underneath the ones I just posted in the chat. The first one I wanted to share with you is Roam. Roam is kind of a sophisticated note-taking app. So it actually gives you the chance to build notes in a way that are transparent, that are connected with each other. So if you work together as a team, Roam helps you to organize, right, your research, whether that's an investigation, whether it's a story you're working on. Roam is an online workspace to organize this kind of knowledge in a note-takey way. And people have found it very interesting, especially people in the journalism world. I have actually learned about this tool from the journalism school here at City University in New York. The second I wanted to share with you is Notion, and I'm gonna hop over to screen share so we can look at this together, because I think for you and the needs that you have is this can be really powerful. So Notion has emerged as a way of producing collaborative documents in a very uncomplicated way. So it also asks you, too many tools, too many chaos. Probably most of us here would say yes. And they're trying to really simplify it to give you a chance to create a document like a Google Doc that's visual. It almost looks like a website, but it's much more interactive than that, and help you teamwork together on a Google Doc. That's what its basically is. And they have developed all these little things that you can put in there that I find really fascinating. Notion is from the West Coast. They have had a search from the West Coast of the United States, from the Silicon Valley. They have seen a surge in usage, and I think they're a really well-built, well-designed platform. And so is the last one that I wanted to share with you today, which is also widely used in the journalism world right now, which is Coda. Coda, I would say you can probably describe as a competitor to Notion, but it is also your all-in-one document, right? So they're also trying to, as a team, give you a simplified way of collaborating, a simplified way of interacting, and a simplified way of organizing your data. And I can't stress it enough. These are a lot of tools. Play around with them, find out what's best for your team. Don't throw things at them. I used to make this mistake all the time. I come across an old tool and say, let's use this. And then after a week, everybody's like, why did we even start using this? And there's some information dangling around. Don't make my mistakes. Play around with them first and introduce them carefully when you have a good use case for them. But I think for the work you're doing, some of these can be very, very helpful. And that said, I thank you for listening. I know 90 minutes is a lot. I have one last question for you here on Slido that I would like to ask you, just as a way to to close this workshop on my end. And if you click on the link, you'll see what I see now, which is, what did you like most about this workshop? And while you think about that, and while you're typing in, and we will see the responses coming up here live, I'll stop my screen share and give back to Paulina for the closing questions.
Yeah, rapid fire questions I would suggest. So I think there are like 3-4 questions that I prepared are left. Besides, our participants didn't put any questions in the chat box, but of course you can do if you want in the last 10 minutes. But if you don't, I have some rapid fire questions, what means that you give just a short answer and that we will get some of your ideas for them. What do you think is the biggest advantage to your point of view organizing virtual workshops instead of physical meetings?
So I think Noko was, and also PJ were talking about this already a little bit. I think the immediate connection without physical borders is the biggest advantage I have seen. So I'm hosting a daily conference now instead of an annual conference. It's a lot of work. It's very exhausting. But the connections we have been building are so much stronger than the ones we have been building through our analog events and workshops, because we're seeing people every day and people come back. And that's been really beautiful. And I would have never experienced this with staying out there in a non-virtual world.
Talking about your learnings in the past few years, what are the 3 top key factors that virtual workshops will succeed?
Excuse me, can you ask that question again? The 3?
Yeah, the top 3 key factors. So what is like most crucial for having successful virtual workshops?
Oh, thank you. So I think very crucial is the beginning. Today we had a messed up beginning, but we were transparent around it. The beginning is important because you welcome people in a setting that they might feel tired, they might feel exhausted, it might be late at night, early in the morning. And you just want to bring them together and give them a space to feel safe and to connect. And to do that, to have a ritual, to have maybe a surprise as we had with the music today, is very important. The other thing, a key factor next to the openings is radical transparency. Don't bullshit around. When something goes wrong, talk about it. When something goes right, be excited about it and celebrate together with your audience. And 99% of our communication is nonverbal, and we don't have that right now. I mean, you can't see my face. You maybe can hear in my voice whether I'm excited or tired, but you can't really, right? So I have to be more of this and be more transparent and honest. And the third thing is go 150%. Like in a room, you can be subtle. You can whisper, you can create a special atmosphere. On this channel, you have to give a little bit more of what you would do usually. You can be more emotional, you can be more angry, you can be more intense, because people will appreciate it. So those are maybe three things.
Okay. How can people be involved who are a bit shy or are not that fluent in a certain language like English?
Mm-hmm. So we have had a lot of introverts joining Remote Daily because they feel safer in this setting that they would feel in a workshop room. That said, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will switch on their video. So when I go to a place where I want people to show their faces, I always invite them. I never force them to switch on their video. I say, if you feel comfortable, please switch it on. If you don't, it's totally fine. The chat is a great way to do it. The chat is also a great way to filter. I think for introverts, at least for the ones that we have had on Remote Daily, they tell me this has been great. I enjoy this because I don't have to go into these settings, into these rooms and do like the networking or whatever it is called and be like awkward around people. I can be in a virtual setting and connect with the whole world. So I'm an extrovert, as you can probably tell. I love to talk. My mom is a teacher, so I guess I inherited that. But I have seen from the reactions from our community that the introverts have a certain advantage in this virtual age.
Enrique is asking, do you have any tips for building trust and overcoming cultural differences early on in a virtual workshop?
Thank you, Enrique. So one we tried today, I guess, which was renaming ourselves to the places we are at, right? And the other thing is, I think, using tools more than trying to, rely on a certain language and that everybody's speaking this language fluently, because we're vulnerable, right? When we host a virtual experience in a language that's not entirely ours, it can feel awkward because we make pauses. And so use tools more and use the tools in a way that people can engage. That goes from the chat to Slido to collaborative documents. Make use of these tools because they overcome the differences we would feel looking at each other, hearing each other, feeling, maybe uncomfortable in a different language. That would be my immediate answer. And then of course it depends on the region you're in. So something that's a little more human for an intercultural connection is, I think, where are you right now? Because then people can start sharing. I'm in my daughter's room right now, right? I'm at my empty office. I'm at my mom's house, and you start building empathy for each other. We didn't do this today because of the beginning we had today, but otherwise I would definitely encourage you to ask, where are you joining us from right now, and share a story that people can, connect to you with and feel empathy for each other.
You're thinking a lot about user experience in the digital space. So what would you think or say or share? What should be a good, or what could be a good user experience when we are talking about online gatherings?
What do you mean from a host perspective or from
participants? What should they take out of it?
Well, I guess it really depends on what you're hosting, right? I mean, today, and I hope that some of you gave us some feedback on on Slido here. Today was really about, you know, sharing relevant tools and being useful for each other. And if I can share my screen here for a last moment and show the word cloud that you thankfully have created through Slido right now, it shows you what the user experience today was about. We tried to be useful and relevant. We tried to share a lot of tools and just suggestions for you to play around with. But we also put in some entertainment, you know, through the music, through sharing some fun. You know, and also have a way of explaining this new world to one another. So there was a little bit too, on my experience, we had too little space to interact. I would have loved to hear more of your stories, but maybe we can do that in the future workshops and dive more into your individual work situations.
And the last two short questions. When people are thinking right now, also colleagues from DW Academy, how long should be a virtual workshop? What is like the maximum length? What do you suggest?
So now we're over time. And I'm very grateful that you're staying here, because we now have different schedules, right? Usually when you had a workshop, you show up in a room, it starts a little bit after the hour, and then you kind of end at the hour, and then it kind of phases out and you leave the room. Now people have calls scheduled. So I'm actually very mindful of that, and I always try to end my workshops before the hour. I messed up with that today. I'm sorry. We're now over the hour. But usually I try to end 3-4 minutes before the actual full hour or half hour, to give people the opportunity to take a quick break, get something to drink, and get their mind ready for the next thing they have on their schedule, right? So that's super important to me. About the length, this is probably the maximum. 2 hours, I just had a 2 hours webinar last week. It was too long. I wouldn't recommend it. I think 1 hour is already long to focus on a video screen and listen. And 1.5 is the absolute max.
Okay. And the last question, because you're also consulting large organizations, but also small ones. Do you think that this time period, you know, due to COVID-19, can help to boost important topics like digitalization of companies, which has been slept over for a long time?
Well, here in the US, it's a perfect storm, right? We're combining a health crisis with a financial crisis, with an economic crisis, with a crisis in education, with structural racism, with bad leadership. So you have all the ingredients there for a complete reset. On Remote Daily every day, and I'm just going to share my contact information with you here. I hope for you to sign up. It's free, and just join our conversation. Every day on this live talk show we host on Zoom, we talk about a new social contract to emerge from this crisis, where we can rebuild some of the systems that are not in place, at least not here in the United States, where we can think over boundaries at work, over working hours, over where our offices should actually be, where we can think about how to combine family and work, where we can think about how education should actually be much more digital than it was before this pandemic. And we now see how much is possible, right? So I think there's a huge opportunity there. And I think a lot of the big companies are going to allow their employees to do much more from home or remotely, working remotely, wherever that is. But I think due to this crisis that we're going through, and so many people getting hurt, and so many people feeling grief and anxiety and panic, it will be very hard to actually land at that reset, because some of the companies that I have been, seeing over the last couple of years dive into what we call the future of work, right? They have been doing this because they were doing very well. Now they're in crisis mode. So that means two things. That means they're letting people go, but they also are changing things dramatically. I have a friend who used to be the chief innovation officer at Bloomberg, right? The big B2B media company here in New York. And he says innovation only happens in crisis. So I hope that he's right. I hope that this is a time of massive innovation. Out of the last financial crisis in the United States emerged Instagram, Uber, a lot of companies that all of you are using right now around the world. So maybe we will see amazing things emerging, but right now the grief is so tangible and so many people are hurt that I have a hard time myself seeing behind the fog and saying, these are the new things that are going to be with us forever after this pandemic.
Okay, good. So I think we should close the session. Thank you. A big applause to Felix. A last
Thank you
applause
for being here.
from our participants. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for joining us, for giving us so many tips, sharing your experiences, answering our questions. This was our last webinar, the 7th webinar within our series and within our project that we are doing with the GIZ, Governance Media Innovation. And we are right now preparing a dossier at our website at DW Akademie, where we are collecting all the webinars that we had in the previous month, so that you can also look at them if you missed one of our sessions. Thank you very much, Felix, to New York City. Thank you very much to all of you all around the world, and I hope to see you soon again.
And thank you, Paulina, for doing this. You're doing an amazing job and so important work. And thank you for letting me disrupt your format today. I look forward to connecting with all of you. My big passion is going out there, seeing the world, and I would love to see all the places you're from. I have only been to some of them. So it really makes me want to see you in real life and experience where you are. So thank you for being here together today.